The house whispers. When the wind dies. We moved out of the city in the spring of 2018 into a house my father bought almost for nothing through an acquaintance realtor. The house stood on the edge of an old apple orchard. A bumpy road, a river, a clay bank, overgrown ditches, 2 water towers painted pale blue. From the window of my room, I could only see the neighbor's porch wind chimes and the gate, which for some reason was never closed, even in winter. That first night we couldn't sleep. The fridge rattled, the floorboards groaned, as if the house briefly woke up every time we fell asleep. Mom said it was settling. Dad nodded, but crossed the doorway anyway. Not a churchgoer, just calmer that way. The neighbors had moved in a year before us. Their plot was strange. A long strip of land stretched along the river, with a narrow house that seemed to have hastily attached extra rooms. At night, a cold bluish light burned in their upstairs window, like from some kind of lab. On the second morning, a woman with gray hair pulled in a bun sat on their porch. On her lap, a bowl of water and a rag. She raised her head at any noise, but never waved, never smiled. Just watched, the way people do when they want to be sure you came alone. They turned out to be a family of 4. The Tarasovs, their relative everyone called Aunt Raya, though she was no aunt of mine, and a 10-year-old girl named Kira. We met in the most banal way. Our basketball rolled into their yard, and I climbed over the shaky fence, right where nails stuck out of the boards. "Don't climb there," said Aunt Raya quietly, not raising her voice. "That's where the marks are." "What marks?" "So we don't forget." I looked down. On the bottom board, someone had carved a repeating sign. A triangle, a small circle at its peak, and 2 short strokes at the base. I didn't understand, but I remembered. Signs rarely have only one author. Kira stepped onto the porch carefully, as if avoiding invisible puddles on the floor. She smiled at me, the honest kind children give when they don't know how to fake it. In her hands, she held a glass jar filled with smooth painted stones. Black, red, blue, one the color of raw meat. "These are for the river," she said, "so it won't touch us." I said nothing. The gloss of those stones came back to me late at night, when the north wind blew and their porch chimes rang not like during the day, but as if someone blew through them one by one, patiently picking a sequence. More than once, I woke to faint clattering, dishes in the cupboard, maybe the radiator, and found myself straining to hear if it was really calling me. Sometimes our gate opened. Dad checked, hinge oiled, latch new, but I heard it. Click, and silence. Look out, nobody there, only wet shoe prints on the path. Not rain, someone's feet. A week after moving, I first saw their upstairs room from inside. Walking with Dad by the river, a man came out of their house, sweater with sagging elbows, smile too practiced. "Your attic's weak," he said. "Drafty. And the old well, replace the lid. Ours drowned a kitten." He knew exactly where our well was. Somehow it didn't surprise me. His name was Igor. He offered to show us his workshop. Reconstruction, restoration, a bit of electronics. Dad nodded. He liked practical men. The workshop was in their new addition, slapped onto the old house against reason. Gaps, uneven beams, wires snaking over plaster. On the table, a lamp without shade, silver tweezers, a bare phonograph record, small convex lenses. Igor switched on the lamp, Its light turned icy. On the shelf, a thick blue notebook, pencil sketches, outlines of a hand, a foot, a reed roof, and what I thought was a map. But it was concentric circles, each with neat notes, like orbits, but instead of planets, words. Trace, victim, wing, dark, water. "Beautiful drawings," said Dad. "They're not drawings. They're fixation," Igor replied, with that same flat smile. Kira and I sometimes met at the river. She tossed in her painted stones. I fed fish with breadcrumbs. We chatted idly until suddenly she'd say something too strange for a child. "Sometimes the river takes people forward, sometimes backward. But not the ones who are called, those it holds in place, so they can't escape." "Who calls them?" I asked. She shrugged. "Someone?" The water doesn't speak in words. Raya would stand silently on the porch watching us. Her hands thin and almost transparent, her lips pressed until her mouth looked carved with a knife. When Kira went back inside, Raya shook out her shirt, as if water might stick to fabric. That evening, I found in our yard one of Kira's painted stones. Scratched into it were 2 letters, N and E. No? Not? Nev? I put it on my desk, planning to ask Kira tomorrow. In the morning, it was gone. September brought early fallen leaves and a patient hush. At night, the house breathed. Faint ticks in the stairwell wall, as if something dropped behind the paneling. The bathroom door would rise 2 millimeters, then ease back. The pipe knocked twice, like a prepared signal. Dad didn't like my stories, but still climbed the attic with a flashlight, sniffing insulation. "Mice," he said. Mom nodded. On something wet. "They told us," the owner said, as if apologizing, "that the house might remember. You know, something from before. We don't believe it, but..." He shrugged. "If you hear anything, you're close by." "Of course," I said, and left without finishing my tea. On the night before Elijah's day, the wind died. I woke on my own, as if someone had called, but not with a voice. The house held no sound. Outside, dead calm. The window black. I got up and stepped into the corridor without turning on the light. It smelled of salt, spilled from the packet in my pocket. As I walked, the floor seemed to soften under my feet. By the living room window, a silhouette. Wrong, flat, like a figure cut from stiff paper. It stood side on to me and drew a finger on the glass, though nothing appeared. I wanted to say Kira, but stopped. "Don't call." I inhaled and whispered, "I'm here." The figure turned its head. There were no features on the face, only a surface. Where the eyes should have been, 2 oval blanks appeared. Not black, just absence. Like when a program doesn't load the top layer and only the mask remains. "You didn't come for a long time," the voice said. The same one, alien and leveled, as if through a microphone. "I thought you'd stopped watching." "What do you mean, I asked. "Name, glass, water," the voice said. "We like smooth things. You can see everyone at once there. Who are we?" The figure tilted its head slightly. "You speak human words. Words don't work. We write, you read, so you named us. Now we can, but not fully. You're holding salt. You always hold salt." For the first time in my life, I regretted that my hands shake. From laughter or fear, I couldn't tell. I said, "Give her back." "Whom?" "The girl." Kira pause. Names aren't things. We don't take, we ask. Those who don't want, stand. Those who want, go. She went. A long way. Where is she? Where the water is. Quieter, you hear? Sometimes. At night. Salt interferes. I took a step. The salt rustled in my pocket. The figure retreated half a step, like an animal that fears fire, but not you. Give her back, I repeated, my voice breaking. You're calling, the voice said calmly. You mustn't. You don't know how to stop. We know how to wait. The figure blurred. I didn't see it leave. It simply became smaller, then darker. Then it wasn't there. 2 letters appeared on the glass. D-O. And the glass dried, though it hadn't been fogged. I realized this wasn't a story. Such things don't end. It's a process. Someone comes to the water, and the water comes to those who love looking at smooth surfaces. We're like that. We love screens, lenses, glass. We call, not with words, but with our gaze. I stopped filming on my phone at night, not because I feared seeing too much, but because I didn't want to give them another surface. I stopped keeping a drinking glass by the bed, removed mirrors, got in the habit of leaving salt at every threshold, even the sheds. My parents got used to it and joked, "For mice?" I said, "Uh-huh." In autumn, a postcard arrived. On it, a tower by the river drawn by a child's hand. On the back, "We remember when the wind." That evening our peephole clicked softly, not from outside, from inside. I froze. A few seconds later, the familiar rhythm came from the wall. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't open. I sat on the floor until dawn, feeling that someone was also sitting behind the door. Without malice, without aim, just sitting, waiting for the wind to still. I got used to it. Honestly, a person can get used to anything that has a rhythm. To pain, if it returns on schedule. To fear, if it comes at the same hour. To houses, if they speak once a night. Sometimes I hear Kira, not as a voice, but as a rhythm. Sometimes I see words on stones that appear and vanish. Don't call, come farther. Sometimes, on glass, when you breathe and it fogs, letters emerge that I don't manage to read. As if someone inside writes while I inhale. Once, at a bus stop, a middle-aged woman with black hair and a light-colored bag sat down beside me. She said, "You've lived here a long time. We were told to approach those who have." "Depends who told you," I said. "People by the water," she answered, and cold crept under my fingernails. "We're looking for a quiet place, a house that listens." "Any house listens," I said. "Not all. Answer." She nodded seriously and took from her bag a small jar with stones. "These are ours," she said. "We don't take other people's." "That matters, yes," I said. "It matters." She left, and I sat a long time watching the print of my palm fade from the glass of the shelter. In a minute, it was gone. This winter the wind fell still again, at night. The house whispered, but not to me. A rhythm sounded in the corridor. Not knock, 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 but another, short, 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 long. I didn't know it. Perhaps it meant don't call, perhaps come. I didn't translate. I sat by the door, set a packet of salt beside me, and placed a stone I'd carved with a knife. Don't call, so I could read it by touch in the dark. I'm not a hero, not a priest, Not even a practical man like Igor. I just live by water and a house that remembers. Sometimes I think everything could be resolved if we named them properly, gave them a shape. But whenever I move that thought closer, the air grows heavy. That same weight, like before the wind. I'm writing this because I was asked to, because once I myself read stories where people confidently put period marks. In real life, there are none. There are commas. There is silence. There are letters on glass that appear and vanish as you breathe. There are stones that end up at your door even if you change houses. And there is one voice, flat, without age or gender, that is probably standing behind me now, reading along with you, with eyes, not a mouth. It loves glass. It likes when the wind dies, and it knows my full name. I try not to call. So far it's working.